How's it going, everyone? It's Alex with AC Flips. I am joined today by Jonathan from Duke Does Amazon. You might have seen some of his YouTube videos. He makes a lot of great Amazon content. But today we are both going to be breaking down some more products for you guys. Another episode in the series, Would You Buy This? It's where we put a data set on the screen of a Keep a chart and a seller amp data, and you guys will determine if you would purchase the product or not. And then Jonathan and I will actually go in and break down the products on the Amazon pages themselves and determine if we would purchase them for our business. So, Jonathan, thanks for coming on the channel today.
Yeah, honored to be here. I really respect what you've done. We've been in touch for a little while now, so anytime you need a guest, I'm always going to be here.
Awesome. Well, let's jump into that first product. All right, so our first product, we have the ceramic set. Pause the video, analyze the data, and determine if you would buy this for your Amazon business or not. All right, so we have this, you can see it's like a porcelain ceramic cookware set, 4 pieces, which is the 2 pans and the lids. Very fragile piece, but we can see that there's only 2 variations. We're looking at a $71 buy cost and $129, selling at $429. We're making a good $22 profit, 31% ROI. On something that looks like it could be fragile, I like to look at the dimensions and the weight. Depending on what packaging this comes in from the supplier, it's still over 10 pounds, which is a pretty heavy piece, especially for something that could break so easily just bouncing around in the back of the shipping truck. So let's look at the Keep a chart just to confirm some of this data. All right, so we can see in the last 3 months, the price has moved quite a bit on a product like this. This thing was selling for like $180, which is really high. So a big tank when the sellers increased on the listing, bottomed out at $99, but we're currently sitting at that $129. For me, this is just a little bit risky being super high like this, especially if this is a really easy product to find, right? Like on a Bed Bath & Beyond, if it's on the main sale page or something like that, we could expect this offer count to go back up in the 20s. And what happens when the offer count's a little bit higher than it currently is, we see prices down at that $99, even down at like $116. If we put that in, is a more reasonable instead of going all the way down to the $99. Now we're sitting at $10, 14% ROI. I mean, could get a return or something broken. It's not a guarantee that something breaks, but it's just the risk associated with how heavy it is and how expensive it is, right? You break one of these, now you need to sell 7 just to make up that profit, which is just a lot of risk in my mind. Let's just quick look at the variations tab to see how often this one sells compared to the other piece. So this one does sell most of the time compared to the other listing, just based on the ratings. This one doesn't get a lot of ratings, doesn't have any reviews, only a couple of reviews, but this one has been getting reviews, the one we're looking at, and it's getting most of the ratings as well. So at least we know this product is selling. For me, this product is just, it does sell well, and the profit is there. But for me, the risk is just a little bit too high for how expensive a product this is, for something to go wrong and it break, and then all of a sudden you need to sell a bunch more just to make up some of those profits. So this is a product that I would probably end up avoiding. I know some people might actually make a purchase on this, and the price is at a fairly decent point. It's been lower before, right? But if the offer count doesn't go up and that price stays put, definitely worth it for some people. For me, just a little too much risk involved.
When it comes to Amazon, sometimes there's just first impressions too. Not only is it fragile material, but it's a 4-pack, so there's multiple. A lot of this is going to be determined on how it gets shipped to you, which it looks like that image looks like it is well packaged, so that's good. Something like this though, first off, if you're someone that isn't willing to prep and pack yourself, pricing and money aside, there's no way I'm sending this to a prep center for my first time. I want to understand how it's packed. Do I need to actually bubble wrap these further? Now, again, this packaging doesn't look to be that way, but we've all received things differently than how images appear on Amazon. So 2, you checked out the variations. Let's make sure that this one is selling. So I would have done that same thing, and that looks to be good. But for me, I always have the mindset, especially the more I do this, that there's just so much out there. If anything has the potential to be a headache, it's just not worth it. And it's not like the ROI is 100%, and it's one of these things that a couple broken ones, we're still making money. Like you said, so for me, 30%. I don't even like to go much below that. And that's kind of like the best case scenario. So when you factor in the fragility, you have to prep and pack yourself. I would say, just to play devil's advocate, you're probably going to compete with less people because a lot of people are going to see this and run away from it. But to me, there's just too much opportunity elsewhere that I feel like this would be a stretch in convincing yourself to make it work, as opposed to it actually just making, straight data sense.
Yep. Yeah, you said it great there. And I think an underrated thing to think about is if you are strictly sending to prep centers, you don't know how it's showing up to the prep center. You don't know if they're checking if any pieces got rattled around when they received it. You're always going to do a better job looking at the product, and you get one thing broken, or you send it in without knowing it's broken, right? And then all of a sudden that's a guaranteed return. Maybe you did a test by a 5. Well, now you lose out on the $71. Maybe it's by the time you send it in and get it back, it's too late to return it to the store you bought it from. So there's just, a lot of risk involved here. And like you said, there's a ton of other products to spend your money elsewhere.
I will just chime in too. Generally, I think there's sometimes advantages to newer sellers. Like a lot more experienced sellers stay away from, let's say, glass altogether, right? It's not worth their headache. But if you're willing to prep and pack, now I'm not talking to this product, but let's just say like glass vitamins or something. If you're willing to put it in some, bubble wrap or whatever at your home, that can open you up to some things as you're trying to figure out what you want to sell and stuff that a lot of sellers won't. So it could kind of be a competitive advantage with bottled glass or glass in general. This just, to me, because of the numbers, doesn't make enough sense to do that. So we have a unique listing here. We have a vitamin that looks to be out of stock that we're going to dive into. I love out of stock items, and if you're able to dissect them, and Keepa can provide great opportunity. So I'll kind of break down what I'm seeing. All right, so here we are again. As I mentioned earlier, first impressions, I like out of stock. And when we look over here at Seller Amp, estimated sales 28 per month. I always take that with a grain of salt. BSR 200K. It's not an incredible BSR, but keep in mind it's been out of stock. I sell out of stock items that get over almost close to 1 million, and a lot of times that happens just because they haven't been in stock in a while. So don't write things off just on sales rank, especially with out of stock items. Now, if our cost is $399 and we have a sale price of $1139, our profit would be $161, 40% ROI. The ROI is good. For me, that's not enough. I also like to have enough dollar cushion, typically at least $5 cushion, just because things fluctuate so much. But we're going to dive in what we can really price this at. When you're the only seller, there's no reason to just assume a price that's been presented or a recent sale. And I'm going to show you kind of what I do here. And so what we're going to do here in Keepa, and it's not a variation, by the way, so we know it's just pure onto this, right? So here's a 3-month snapshot. Now, it wasn't the buy box, but it recently sold. The most recently, well, there was like 2 quick sales here, 1676. So we know, and this 1676 even caught the buy box. So we know at a minimum, in my head, we'll get 1676 for this all day long. And if you plug those numbers in, now we're talking $6.18 profit, 154% ROI. But for me, what I like to do is when I'm the only seller for an item that's in demand clearly, why not try to set the new high is my mentality. So it did sell for $19.99. Now it didn't catch the buy box, but it absolutely sold. And just to prove it sold, because the seller count went from 1 here at $19.99 to now no sellers. So that's a really easy way. Now, something else I like to do is span out to a year or all to see the highest it's ever sold for. And it does look, going back to a year here, we can do all, but I have a hunch. Okay, so it here we could highlight that if we wanted to, but frankly, it's so long ago that it's kind of irrelevant. So the highest price it's recently commanded is $19.99. I might go in and list this, especially while I'm shipping it to Amazon, for $24.99. And what's the absolute worst case that could happen, right? And that would be that it goes stranded. So then you bring it down to $19.99 because that's a price that it recently sold for. So I have reason to believe it's not going to become stranded. All right. So whenever I'm the only seller, A couple other things I like to do. How accessible is this product to the masses? If I add 10 to my cart, is there only 5 that make it there because there's not enough stock? Are there other sites selling this? You know, I'm not going to go buy 100 thinking I can get $19.99 if all of a sudden there's been an influx of supply, right? But everything I have in front of me, it's a good selling product. Here, the BSR, by the way, was all the way down to like in the 20,000s. Again, now it's 200, but that's because it hasn't been in stock. I'm confidently buying this product. If I can get it for $3.99, I think I could confidently sell this for $19.99 if I'm first in stock. And if I want to get it moving, I think $14.99 would be like a worst case scenario, unless, and this does happen, something unforeseen happens, like there's an influx of sellers at the same time as you. To me, there's no real risk here. With a lot of upside, I would probably buy comfortably 10 to 20 of these, knowing that there's a good chance other people will eventually catch up. And being first to market, you have no competition and you command a premium. So I love listings like this.
Yeah, I totally agree. I really like your breakdown on like how to really read this type of chart. Like, I think a lot of people are going to look at the 200K sales rank and the 28 sales a month and maybe write it off. But I mean, you got to dig way deeper than that. Cause like you said, the lowest rank here is like 20 some thousand. I mean, that's selling pretty fast in the health and household category. So I just wanted to throw a hypothetical at you because I like the way you break this down. Kind of maybe give us like, what is the point where like, if historically it's selling at say a 200K rank and then it goes, you know, out of stock and then that rank hits like 600K, are we, you know, is there a certain like historical rank threshold that you're like, even if it's in stock, it's not worth purchasing? Or if you're the only one on the listing, or even if you do a test by a 3 or 5, is it still worth it even if the rank was historically not very good?
Yeah, so I wouldn't say that I think about it in terms so much of sales rank. What more, the longer it's been out of stock, for some reason I've noticed that just some things don't necessarily pick right up where they left off, right? So if something was selling like crazy, let's say this product was selling like crazy at $19.99 2 years ago, for whatever reason it slipped through the cracks, it's the exact same product. I don't have the same confidence that I'm going to be able to pick right up where I left off, whether that be Amazon's algorithm, the buy box, you know, however that works, then something like this, that it was in stock very recently, right? And so it's not so much about sales rank as much as how long ago was the last time this product was actually in stock and selling. And again, I think it's one of those things that you just chalk up to Amazon. I don't know why, but I'm more comfortable buying lower quantities. And it's one of those things, I'll do a much smaller test buy. And as soon as I get one sale, then I'll kind of hurry up to try to, now that I've proven my concept, or if it's taking time, you know, not too much of a risk type of thing.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that breakdown. So I'd definitely be buying. You said 10 to 20 units. Yeah, it's tricky because like you probably could get away with buying like 30 to 40. But again, like, how much risk are you willing to take on? And
right.
And if there is, that's the thing, is if it's really tough to find, if you're finding it on some supplement warehouse site or something where it's you know, a little bit hard, you had to do some digging and there was a secret coupon you found, then maybe you can go a little deeper. But if it's a Vitacost or a iHerb where you're just buying it on the homepage and everybody's getting the 20% off, then you know, that 10 to 20 range maybe is a little bit safer pick. But
yeah, like I think like anything, there's so many variables. Like you just said, how easy is it for you to get this? How easy is it for you to get it at this price? How much supply is out there? Did it all come back at once? Have you sold this brand before? And something else too, I will say, it's one thing to buy 40 if you're good with selling it at $14.99, but if you're someone that's fully intent on planning on $19.99 for whatever reason, well, like in my experience, buy box versus no buy box, things with buy box sell a lot quicker, right? So at $19.99, if we assume that you're not going to get the buy box, it doesn't mean you won't get quick sales. But if you're really trying to move it, especially in your first pop, if you're comfortable, you know, that's kind of a major advantage. If you have the confidence to buy a lot up front, But again, there's just so many variables. So depending on where you're willing to sell it, if you're looking to catch the buy box, I'd buy more. If you're looking to get $19.99, prove the concept, maybe you have less capital, whatever, I'd probably just dabble, try to get a really quick sale to prove your concept, and then try to buy more depending on the other variables.
All right, for our third product, we have a Pac-Man figurine toy. Pause the video, analyze the data, and determine if you would buy this for your business or not. All right, so we have this Pac-Man figurine. Looks like 113K rank, 47 sales a month. Again, we want to double check that number before just assuming that's the one. There are no variations, which is good to see. Buy cost, we're looking at $19.99, $44 sale price, $11 profit, 58% ROI. Just based on that information, I mean, looks like a solid product, but obviously we want to look at the Keepa data to make sure that it actually is worth purchasing any at all. So also just a quick thing to glance at, we see a lot of good reviews here. That's always a good sign, take that at face value, but it's just good to see that it's, people are rating this product good, maybe lessen the returns. But looking at the Keepa data here, you can see that the price is inflated. So maybe that $44, depending on, how easy you're finding this product or, what type of competition is looking to get back on this listing. We see that historic price is pretty steady, right at like $40, $39, somewhere in that range. So at least we have that, right? It seems like to be the low price here, no matter, we're only at like one seller, but historically we've seen it sitting above 10 basically. So if there's 10 sellers in the listing and it's steady at $39, we just want to double check that we are still profitable at that $39. So we can see $7 and 36% ROI. That's a really good sign. I like to see that. But the inflated price, right? We can buy this with the intent to sell at the 44, but also with the understanding that we might have to sell at the 39. So that's kind of how you should probably go about looking at, your price point and what you're selling it at. Probably list it, right? We purchase it. Maybe the offer count's still low when we buy. We expect to sell it at 40. We hope to sell it at 44. We know that we could be selling it at 39 if the offer count goes back up and we see that, regression back down to the mean. So looking at the data tab here, just to get a little bit more data here, we can see historic offers. We see 44, 40, 42, 39. That's good. 35 total sales in the stock history. We'll get rid of the used ones, but we have historical offers, a lot of FBA sellers here. And what I like to look for here is not necessarily the full number of, how many sold, because these numbers aren't super correct. Like Keepa doesn't have all the data. Amazon's really the only one who fully understands, what each seller is selling. But what we can look at is kind of the trend of their stock history chart. Sometimes you'll see super large spikes and then it goes back down. Something similar to this, but you'll see larger ones. And that's usually like an FC transfer potentially. If it's at one count, you see a big drop or a big spike and then it goes back down. Unfortunately, Keepa tracks that as a sale. But what we do like to see is like a steady decline of what looks to be, consistent sales. So right here, we can see kind of a steady decline, right? This looks like it sells one here, sells another one, sells another one. So that is stuff that we could potentially, that I would trust more as understanding of actual sales data. So, and then we could want to, pay attention to the timeline of it too. How quickly is it taking to go from this 29 stock all the way down to basically zero? We can see, started at 29 back in, early August and it's early September. So we can assume that they sold around 20 to 25 in a month. And then obviously some of these other sellers have some steady sales data as well. So, I'm just using this as a little bit more context into how many I should be buying. If we go back to the actual Keepa chart, we can see the rank is a little bit high, especially for a toy, right? We're sitting between anywhere as low as 50K all the way up to 200K. And that rank does creep up when the price goes up. So we can tell that the market and the consumer are a little bit more willing to purchase at this, $39 price point than they would at the $44. But it doesn't change a whole lot, right? We do see it touch 200, but overall the action of the sales rank is very similar. So definitely something that I would buy, even if it's a test buy, right? If we're going to sell this at $44, Making 57% ROI without really seeing much opportunity for tanking or something happening to the price long term is a good sign for us. So even if we're able to buy 5 of these, right, we're going to make, $11 each. That's some pretty solid profit for just one lead. So a product that I would probably purchase. Again, we see some other sellers selling more than 5. So, something like this, you could potentially do a test buy of 5. And then if you start selling those, then you can go and replan more, especially with how consistent the price is. Hopefully we're seeing, in 3 weeks or so, whenever your product's listed and starts selling, you should still be profitable at that purchase price. So for me, probably something I would purchase.
Yeah, I really, first off, I really love your breakdown in the offers tab, exactly how I look at stock history. It's not necessarily the number, but I like to see that nice steady trend. And actually what you did, I do myself. I hover over one point to now when they're down, and I'm like, okay, this person sold 22 in 3 weeks. This person sold 10, and you can kind of piece together how many are selling in a month, right? So I love that. And it's just, with any buy, what you're doing is painting a picture of what's going on and what's about to happen. And so that just kind of confirms that it's definitely selling and steadily. I really love the price that, to me, worst case scenario, you're doing $39.99. And frankly, if I was buying this, I'm probably assuming that's what I'm going to get for it. But if I happen to get lucky and get it in time and the transfers line up, I know that I could potentially get 44. And by the way, if maybe you get the last of the amount before, maybe it's an item that is going out of stock, hence the decrease in sellers, and you can get your hands on a few, maybe you can get $49.99. So when you weigh the worst and best case scenario, it's clearly moving. I like this a lot. I see no real risk or downside. I mean, I guess there's always some risk, but this is a clear-cut purchase in my opinion. I don't think it's flying per se, but absolutely doing a purchase if I could get my hands on it at a price I like.
Yep, exactly. And another thing that we didn't really talk about, and it's not super directly correlated with what we're talking about now, but this it's a toy, and we are creeping up on Q4. So
yeah,
it doesn't hurt to look back at the data from last year's Q4. So we do see Amazon on the listing. Maybe adds a tiny bit of risk. Potentially they could come back on, maybe for the Q4 season, but it maybe looks like a potentially discontinued product that Amazon just hasn't touched in over a year or almost a year. So it's tough to look at that. There's not really a lot of last year's, Q4 data to tell us, because we haven't really seen anything. We're not going to see this type of selling, trend for this one, but definitely something to keep an eye on. If we see, we buy it now, right, and we sell it, and we know we can buy it at a good price. Pay attention to the rank over the next 2 months, because if we see this thing start to creep below 100K, maybe even close to that 50K more consistently, you might just have found yourself a really solid, Christmas toy that you might be able to replan a couple different times in that Q4 season, and just might make yourself a good chunk of profit.
Let me ask you a question, Alex. So in the bottom chart, you see that sharp increase in review count, drastic 4 over the right there. What did it go from
900 all the way to over 1300?
Yeah. So how do you interpret that, or what's your theory on that?
To me, it looks like potentially there was another listing similar that had maybe 400 reviews, and they merged them.
Yeah.
And then all the data got combined. But the good thing is we still see an increase in reviews, right? We can see that it, starts at 1373. We're still creeping up all the way. I mean, 10 reviews in a month and a half is it's not a ton, but it just tells you that with combination of the offer count dropping, going up and then dropping, it just tells you that it's selling. I mean, we're seeing multiple different signs plus the offers tab. All that data is just giving you a much better, more context into that it's actually selling. So it's good to see.
Yeah, and also I completely agree. I mean, Amazon was selling it so long ago that I wouldn't even necessarily factor that in, very, very, very small percent. But another thing I do like to say is, for anyone doubting if it's going to sell or not, Amazon, even though they're selling it at a much lower price because they can afford to, they typically don't sell things that don't move. So it's just another tiny context clue that says this item is selling.
Yep. Yeah. This is a good product to look at and a good product to keep in mind over the next few months.
How will you track this, by the way? Now I'm asking you questions. I'm learning too. Like, I'm curious.
Yeah. So Keepa does have let's see, they have the track product. Have you ever used this track product?
I use it all the time. That's why I was curious if you do.
Yep. Yeah, I'll track certain products to watch the price, right? I mean, if we know if it's like $19.99 with like a 10% off on a website, that's fairly easy to find, and we don't, it just doesn't seem like a product that 50 sellers are going to jump on like that. So
Yeah.
We don't expect a ton of movement here. But if that price stays steady, and then I'm just kind of maybe checking it, and I do use Seller Board for checking replens too. So,
Yeah.
but it's, you track the data, you make sure that price stays at a certain point. I'd maybe go, tell me like whenever if it drops below 38 or 39, sorry.
Yeah.
And then maybe I'll like, okay, maybe we got to be careful with this product going super deep. But yeah, it's just something I'd check every couple of weeks and see what the rank is up to. If we see some a little bit lower of a trend going into Q4, that would really excite me on a product like this, especially making, $8 to $11 profit.
Totally. And let me just add too, I use track product, and you can set, like you mentioned, what price to get alerts at, but I don't even get caught up on the price. I just use the track product as another way to track things that I'm interested in. And it's a very simple file to go through, and you can see what's going on in the Keepa chart. So you can just see, forget what the price is. Oh, I can see visually really quickly the seller count's going down, the price is going up, because when you come across so many products, keeping track of them one way or another is going to be like a huge competitive advantage. And this is just another way that I do it, just to throw that out there.
Yep. Yeah. For those who don't know, you track it, and then Keepa has in Keepa.com. I won't show it, but in Keepa.com, you can just go to the track product and looks at all of your products that you have tracked. And then you can just hover and look at the Keepa chart, and it's a quick way to, get through. If the SellerAmp Google export sheet isn't doing it for you, then just another way to like get a nice data set for you.
Alrighty, so we have not necessarily a bundle, but it's 3 items packaged together in like the health and beauty product here. First looks at it, it's a little interesting, good amount of sellers on it, but we'll break it down here. So, alrighty, so here we have the set. First things first that I noticed, it's a hazmat product, okay, or dangerous good. If you're enrolled in the dangerous good products and you can send them in FBA right off the bat before I even look at numbers, that can always be a competitive advantage. Or if you're willing and able to do FBM, and we'll look into see if FBM gets some of the buy box as well, or some of the sales as well. But first things first, if you're not and you don't want to do FBM, I'm probably not even going any further at this point. Okay. So now we're looking at numbers, like always, take them with a grain of salt. Sales rank 6,000, very good. Estimated sales 18, 19 a month, very good. At these numbers, profit of 250, 27.81% ROI. ROI, depending on everyone's different thing, might be okay. I don't love 250, just because, again, I've done enough Amazon to know things fluctuate, so you're not creating a whole lot of cushion. Sometimes it pays to just look at profit, not profit margin or ROI. But that being said, like always, we'll take this down to Keepa. Alrighty, so here we are in Keepa. It's not a variation that would appear here if there was. So sometimes I like variation, sometimes I don't, but just for knowing that it's the pure data, that's nice. Just eye test, amount of reviews is increasing like crazy. This thing is moving, no doubt about it. Down here, sales rank 3,000 at the lowest, 2,000. All things considered, the price is relatively stable. It's basically looks to be between 30 and 20 bucks, and 1944 is kind of on the lower end of that. So I wouldn't anticipate it, again, first impression, that it would go for much less than this, unless I had reason to believe when sourcing, maybe it's on a major site sale, maybe it's just a very frictionless purchase right now, right? And that could be a reason why. So when I'm factoring in these things, my absolute best case scenario, in my opinion, let's call it $30, right? So I certainly don't mind that. That's going to bump us up here. Yeah. Sale price, $30. All right. So here, best case scenario, in my opinion, spend 9, make 11 bucks. Nothing wrong with that whatsoever. Worst case is kind of the 1944. At least that's the low. But in my opinion, too, a big deterrent or a big determinant, if that's a word, would be how much of this is available right now. Is it on major sites? Is a major site having a sale that makes this very easy? Because if so, it's a good reason to believe the price will dip. And right now we only have $2.50 cushion until it's a break even. So I don't love that. And again, really comes down to trying to predict where this is going. If it's very accessible, the price is probably going to go down. If you happen to have reason to believe this is discontinued, lower stock, it was harder for you to get this product, etc., well, maybe you have reason to believe that you can get a little bit more, $25, closer to 30. I mean, if we look really close, it has been a decrease recently in the amount of seller counts. Now, not drastically, but just like here, there was 67, now there's 61. So I wouldn't really say it's like a sharp decrease, but it's not increasing at least. So that's not a bad thing. Always like to look at data and offers and see what's going on.
Just to chime in, that best case scenario, that's more speculation that it's going to ever get to that point again, right? It's not like we shouldn't take that data as hard data and expect to sell it at 30, right? So, you could,
it's not even close.
Yeah, speculation of it could if the offer count really started to go down. We don't really maybe see that happening anytime soon. We see a couple drops in the offer count at times, but it seems like it picks right back up. So maybe that is a sign, right, that it's fairly easy to find. When it gets to a certain price point, people are pulling the trigger on it. And it's not really a one-off item that just a bunch of people found. It's a consistent item that's easy to find or on sale at some site at some time, which is why there's consistently 60 or more sellers on the listing.
Yeah, no, 100% agree. And I have no reason to believe best case scenario would happen. I just look at that as,
it's good to look at.
If all the stars align, the highest it's ever sold for in the last 3 months is $30. So just like the always way. Now, again, like you said, and I just said, no reason to believe that it's going to go up to that anytime soon. And if the seller count was sharply decreasing and it was hard to get, that might be a time to think that. But like at where we are now, absolutely not. So at this point, I don't really like a lot of this listing. As I mentioned, 250 is just not enough cushion for me to think that there's any reason for that margin or that profit to go any higher. Like you, a lot have sold 530, take it with a grain of salt, but I'm just kind of looking visually here in the charts, the amount of sellers, are they decreasing here? Like this person seems to, I break this down with the ups and downs. They're constantly sending it in and out of, and it hits at different time. And when it hits, it sells, they go down, up type of thing. But a lot of these charts are definitely showing movement, and it looks like a lot of sellers in general. Now, I'm not necessarily saying for this chart, but one thing you could do here is click on FBM only if you're not somebody that's part of the dangerous goods program, because that's your only option to sell this. So it definitely looks like FBM is getting sales. So that's one way to look at it. Another thing I would do is go to buy box statistics. Now, again, I wouldn't even probably go to this stuff at this point. But just while we're doing this, right? So here there's a tab. You can see the check mark next to FBA sellers. And if not, it's FBM. So this person, FBM, they are getting buy box share. Okay. So let's just say the numbers made sense, but it was hazmat and your only way to do it is FBM. And I believed in it. I wouldn't be deterred just because I'm an FBM seller. They're absolutely getting buy box share. Not a drastic amount, but not too much lower than everyone else on average. So that wouldn't be my deterrent. Ultimately, what this comes down to is there's just not enough meat on the bone. I don't have reason to believe that the price is going to go up. And also, if I can find this easily and accessibly right now, so can all these other sellers. So for me, this is a pretty easy pass.
Yep, I agree 100%. It's just I don't care how fast it moves. Even if I sell 100 a month at the $2 price point, $2 profit, there's going to be returns. I mean, there's going to be potentially some damaged products. Like I've sold plenty of gift sets in the past, especially for Q4. And, especially if it's going to a prep center and the box looks slightly damaged, but someone wants to give it as a gift and it's just not good enough, they might return it. I mean, there's lots of things that could happen. But it's just, there's just not enough cushion. Cause I mean, that 1944 price, sale price point, it is like really close to the low, but I mean, we could have one sale hit on a certain website, which brings that 19, maybe the buy cost goes from, what do we have, $8.99, brings it down to $7.99. And then all of a sudden 30 more people buy because they're like, oh, finally I can get it profitably. And we've seen in the past when the offer count goes up, the price seems to drop slowly. So why wouldn't it happen again? And then that 19, maybe we bought it for $8.99 and everyone else a week later got it for $7.99. And now we're sitting at an even lower margin. Everybody else has room to go down. So they're willing to pay lower. And it's just kind of you're not in a great situation because like we said, we just don't have enough cushion to last through all the sellers and any sale that comes up.
Yeah, and just to play devil's advocate, something just crossed my mind. If you are enrolled in the dangerous good items, meaning you can send in hazmat for FBA, some people do only shop for Prime or FBA. They don't even waste their time doing FBM. So if the buy box statistics indicated to me that FBA got a premium over FBM, well, now you may be able to carve out another $1 or $2 or profit, especially if you find this at a better price. But day to day, for one, it's not indicating that by any means. But even if it was, that would be like the only maybe sliver that I would consider. And that's just throwing a hypothetical out there because there is definitely an advantage to being a prime seller if the data suggests that you can charge more.
Yep. And then one more devil's advocate just for the video. The FBA sellers, when you do ship hazmat, you have to ship it separately. Amazon doesn't let you use their UPS, shipping. So in my experience shipping hazmat, because I am in the dangerous goods program, I mean, I think it's close to $1 more, depending on how many you send in, $1 more per item. Cause I sent in 25 of something recently and it was like $26 to ship like UPS ground, a big box. So,
oh, wow.
Just something to, another thing to keep in mind. And maybe that destroys any advantage you have as an FBA seller on this particular product. Some other products, it's definitely worth it. But this one, I think there's just too many different cons that outweigh the pros in my mind. So I agree with you.
And the last thing I'll say is though, whenever I come across something, even if it doesn't make sense, but you see it has a seller rank in the, low thousands, well, that means this brand probably has other items that you can look for that maybe you can piece together or figure it out. So I wouldn't just write this off and move on. Say, okay, maybe this is a brand worth exploring,
Yep, that's a great idea. All right, so those were our breakdown of the 4 products here. Hope you guys got all the same answers as us. I know we threw a little curveball in there with the out of stock item, but hopefully it's just a little bit different than what you guys are used to seeing here. But Jonathan, thanks for joining the channel. Where can people see your content?
Yeah, no, great being here. I enjoyed that. I always I'm still learning all the time, and it's interesting to see how people break down Keep-A charts, which is really the name of the game, So Instagram, YouTube, Duke Does Amazon. I'll have some links in there. I'm actually teaming up with some really smart behind the scenes people to put together rolling out a leads list. So that'll be you'll be able to find that through my social stuff as well. And that's it.
Awesome. Yeah, that sounds like a great idea, especially going into Q4. A lot of people are looking for leads. So leads list, definitely a good idea. So yeah, go check out. He has a lot of great YouTube content. I've watched plenty of it, even for my own benefit. So definitely go subscribe to both our channels. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments if you did, and we'll see you in the next video.